guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another video. I wanted to basically film something where I talk about my most anticipated books for 2026, but I didn't really want to film another TBR video. I don't mind making TBR videos, but let's be honest, it's really easy to make a list of books you want to read, but it's way harder to actually read through all of them. And don't get me wrong, I try my best, but I don't have heaps and heaps and heaps of time to read. And so I didn't want to accumulate a ton of TBR videos on my channel and not even get around to read most of them. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm just going to be going through a list of books that I'm going to be looking forward to seeing come out in 2026. I'm going to do this in categories, like in genres, just so it's a little bit easier and less, I guess, all over the place. So I'm going to start with fantasy because it's my go-to genre. It's just my bread and butter. So yeah, side note, it's very early in the morning. The sun is like kind of just hidden behind some clouds, but the clouds are moving. It might change the lighting a bit, so I'm really sorry if that's annoying. And all the birds are usually screeching at this time as well, so hopefully that's not too annoying. I will be looking at my phone just because it's on my phone. Okay, the first book that I came across that was apparently going to be coming out in 2026 is Deadbeat by Leigh Bardugo. This is the third book in the Alex Stern series. So I just call it the Ninth House series because that was the name of the first book. So yeah, so if you don't know what this series is about, it's about a main character, Alex Stern, who has the ability to see ghosts. And because she has this ability, she's kind of come from a really rough upbringing and she's gone through some really intense things. But because of her ability, she is kind of given this, I guess, scholarship or like one-way ticket to Yale. Because in Yale, there are, like the university, in Yale there are a bunch of secret societies. They all are kind of involved in like these ritual, necromancy kind of things. And so they do some pretty dark, serious stuff. And they recruit Alex to be part of a secret society. I have literally forgotten the name. I'm assuming it's the Ninth House society, and essentially that society's job is to keep the other societies in check. So making sure that when they do their rituals and they do their necromantic practices or whatever, that life and death are in balance. And I think having her ability to see ghosts is pretty helpful in that. And so that's the basis of the story. Obviously there are loads of things that happen. There's a huge adventure. That's how the first book basically rolls out. And I loved the first book. It's very much like fantasy, dark academia. I'm very excited for the third book. I feel like I wouldn't say it's as good as Six of Crows, but I do love the concept and the atmosphere, and I love the characters. I like Alex. I obviously love Darlington, who is another character in the book. So yeah, very excited for that. Deadbeat by Leigh Bardugo. Okay, so apparently there seems to be a book called Daggerbound by T. Kingfisher. It's book 2 in the Sword Heart series. I have not read the series, but let's have a look at what it's about. T. Kingfisher is the author of Nettle and Bone, and I read that book and I really liked it. It was sort of like a kind of fantasy fairy tale-esque kind of adventure book. I wouldn't say it's like super high stakes, super like adventurous. It's sort of like fairy tale vibes, if you know what I mean. But this is the Sword Heart book synopsis, so the first book in this series. Hella is a housekeeper who has suddenly inherited her great uncle's estate and unfortunately his relatives. Sarkis is an immortal swordsman trapped in a prison of enchanted steel. When Hala draws the sword that imprisons him, Sarkis finds himself attempting to defend his new wielder against everything from bandits and roving inquisitors to her own in-laws, and the sword itself may prove to be the greatest threat of all. Okay, so fantasy, romance. Okay, fun. But yeah, the second book is what's coming out, and that's called Daggerbound. It just seems like a classic fantasy romance. It says here romantasy. so that might be interesting. So Daggerbound by T. Kingfisher. Okay, so the next book that I can see is coming out is Victorious by V.E. Schwab. So apparently this is the third installment in the Villains series. Again, I haven't read this. Every time I go to the library, I always look in V.E. Schwab, like the section of V.E. Schwab, and there's barely ever any of her books on the shelf. The first book is called Vicious, and it's about, I'll just quickly read what it says here. Victor and Eli started out as college roommates. In senior year, a shared interest in adrenaline, near-death experiences, and seemingly supernatural events reveals an intriguing possibility that under the right conditions, someone could develop extraordinary abilities. But when their thesis moves from the academic to the experimental, things go horribly wrong. Okay, so it seems like 10 years later, they go on different paths, and they have powers, I'm assuming. Okay, I think I've heard about this. The thing is, this book came out in 2013. So I'm assuming this series has always been in the works for quite a while. When did book 2 come out? Book 2 is Vengeful, and that came out in 2018. Okay, so maybe it's something that's always been in the background and it's being worked on. But yeah, we've got the third installment. I've heard insanely good things about this series, so yeah. So that's Victorious by V.E. Schwab. Okay, I'm moving on to a different genre. This is like literary fiction, contemporary fiction, because I have seen some books that I really want to read that sound really interesting. So the first one I came across and I heard on a podcast was Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. If you don't know, Jeanette McCurdy is the author of I'm Glad My Mum Died. She is the child star. She was in Sam and Cat, and was it iCarly? I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So I have not read I'm Glad My Mum Died, but I have listened to many podcasts and many interviews where she talks about her childhood and everything, and so I know a little bit about her story. But this is her first work of fiction, I'm pretty sure. And I watched the podcast episode of her on Call Her Daddy. Why did I struggle with that? Call Her Daddy. And it really reminded me of My Dark Vanessa. Essentially, both of these books are around the idea of a student starting a relationship with a teacher. And if you've read My Dark Vanessa, that is, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's so intriguing. And so I'm like kind of drawn to these, like, I guess psychologically twisted books. I just think it's just so interesting. And what is it about these environments and these people that puts young girls in this situation, you know? So we've got Waldo. I think she is a high school student, and she begins a relationship with her creative writing teacher, who, by the way, has a wife and kid. I'll just read this a little bit. It says, she doesn't know why she wants him. Is it his passion, his life experience, the fact that he knows books and films and things she doesn't? Or is it purer than that, rooted in their unlikely connection, their kindred spirits, the similar filter with which they each take in the world around them? Or perhaps it's just enough that he sees her when no one else does. Okay, this is very much My Vanessa coded. And in My Dark Vanessa, you are obviously from the perspective of the girl, the student, the younger one, and you are just in her head and how she perceives things and how she thinks she's she's special, and why, like, how she justifies the relationship and the start of it. And yeah, it's kind of sickening. It's a little bit sickening, but it's so intriguing. Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. So the next book I came across, I didn't even know how to wrap my head around this plot, but I'll explain. It's called Enormous Wings by Laurie Frankel. So we have 77-year-old Pepper Mills. She's a grandma and she moves into a retirement home and she falls in love. And essentially, she finds out that she's pregnant. Okay, she's pregnant. And this just starts a whole whirlwind of press and paparazzi and medical researchers, and she has to figure out what she needs to do. Like, I just want to know the actual plot line, like what is going to happen specifically. Like, how do we get here? Yeah. insane. Okay, so next I came across Land by Maggie O'Farrell. If you don't know, Maggie O'Farrell is the author of Hamnet, which is in cinemas now. On a windswept peninsula stretching out into the Atlantic, Thomas and his reluctant son Liam are working for the Great Ordnance Survey Project to map the whole of Ireland. The year is 1865, and in a country not long since ravaged and emptied by the Great Hunger, the task is not an easy one. It's a pretty intense historical setting, but she kind of picks these characters and this storyline, and I think, from what I remember from Hamnet, I think it's like you don't even need to really know about Shakespeare. You don't even have to be like interested in his plays. I think the way she just uses it as a backdrop, and then her plot line is just, it stands on its own, and it's really interesting and so intriguing, and I don't think you need to actually be super invested in Shakespeare, and I feel like that's the same thing with this book. Okay, we're moving on. The other genre that I'm always kind of drawn to is, I guess you could say, like thrillers, mystery thrillers / a little bit horror. This is more like mystery thrillers, and I came across some that I definitely want to get my hands on. So the first one is Whidbey by T. Kira Madden. This book is about a child abuser who's been released from jail. And there are two women who were his victims, and they are kind of trying to figure out what to do now that he's out of prison. But before anything, I guess, further happens, he winds up dead. And so I think the book is literally about what these two women do in that aftermath. When is that coming out? Oh, March 10th, 2026. Okay, so that's Whidbey by T. Kira Madden. Okay, so this is another thriller that I came across. It's called Heart of Glass by Jennifer Hillier, and it's going to be released on 25th August. Okay, I'm just going to read what it says here, but it basically says, a serial killer recants his long ago confession regarding a small town high school girl and her then best friends are forced to confront what really happened that night and what's happening now. I think I just got chills. What does that even mean? And I think there's more to it than what it seems. So I feel like something with these two best friends is like they're involved, and I don't know what quite is happening, but the lack of detail is making me want to read this book. So it's giving serial killer, but there's more to it. It's not just a serial killer, you know, there's more to the story. But yeah, I haven't read a serial killer book. I don't think so. I don't think I've read books on serial killers. The funniest part is the cover looks like, I would say it looks like a fantasy book. Can you guys see that? It looks like a fantasy book cover. Anyways, Heart of Glass by Jennifer Hillier. So I'm going to wrap this up. This is the last book that I came across that I just read the synopsis and I was like, yeah, that sounds insane. This is Anatomy of an Alibi by Ashley Elston. So, from what I can gather about this book, it seems like there's two women involved. One of them has got a husband, and the other woman is also got some link to this woman's husband, and they both kind of team up to try to basically investigate this guy because they're kind of doubtful of him and they figure like he's hiding something. So they both team up, but he winds up dead. This is kind of like the other book I was talking about. But yes, the husband winds up dead, and now they both need a really strong alibi as to where they were because he's dead. So yeah, that's Anatomy of an Alibi by Ashley Elston. I think that's all the books I'm going to go through. Those are the ones that just stuck out to me. Some of the authors that I've read books from before, or series that I'm going to continue. Hopefully this is fun. It was just meant to be a chill, like, chat with me, let's see what's happening in 2026 kind of thing. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. I don't think I've ever said that in a video. I should probably say that. Give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know what kind of book videos you want to see in 2026. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!